Hello everyone, welcome to this stream. You can see on the screen we have a nice COVID-19 report application. This is a project which I created out of boredom last week over the weekend. This is a multi-part tutorial. In this series, what we are going to do, we are going to create this whole application from scratch using Xamarin Forms. There are multiple components that you can see over here. We have got the latest news with a nice card view or a carousel view. You can move around it. We have got a donut graph which is showing the split of the cases around the world, the number of cases, active cases, deaths, etc. And then we also have got at the bottom the top 5 countries and their percentage of the total across the globe. Of course, when you click on a country, it will take you to a further page which will have much more details, such as maybe the daily view of how this pandemic is spreading. There are multiple aspects to this tutorial. We are not just only going to focus on the UI design. You can see over here, by the way, that I have spent a lot of time trying to make the UI look very nice and polish it. But other than that, we will also be focusing on some of the best guidelines when creating a Xamarin Forms application, such as creating a view model, organizing your project. We will be using some of the components which are required for almost every project. We'll be creating some helper methods, some exceptions, and additionally we will also be focusing on the splash screen and the icon that you can see on your home screen of your phones. We'll be doing this for both iPhone as well as for Android. So without further ado, let us jump on with it. Let me close this view and let us start with Visual Studio. But yes, before we move to Visual Studio, just to let you know, these are some of the inspirations that I looked at before creating this particular application. So this is a design which is created on or available on Behance. And then I also looked at some of the other designs. You can see over here, this is also a good looking design, and this particular one is also very nice. So I decided to take the best of all of these and try to create this particular one that you see on the screen. We'll be making use of some public APIs which are available on the internet to provide us with the required data. So let us start with the Visual Studio. I am going to create a new Visual Studio project. We will start with a blank forms application. By the way, in most of my cases, I go with the proper MVVM framework such as Prism or MVVM Cross. But for this particular purpose, we will create the out-of-the-box vanilla Xamarin Forms application, and we will try to build a poor man's MVVM version in this. In the further streams, what I will do, I will convert this to a Prism MVVM application. So let us start with this. Let us give a name to the application, maybe COVID-19 tracker. Okay, what is the company name? In my case, I'm going to give it Xgeno. So you can see this is the bundle name that will be published on the app stores or the Google Play Store. I'm going to create it for both Android as well as iOS. Let's say next. The project name is the same. I'm not going to change it. It is going to be stored in the default location. The whole source code, I will be making it available after this stream. You can see it on the screen. It is at the bottom. It will be available on my GitHub account. You have the link over there. And as I mentioned, this is just the first stream. There will be multiple parts of this going forward. I highly recommend that you subscribe to my channel on YouTube. You can see the link over there as well on the screen. You subscribe to this, so as and when I post part 2, part 3 and the further videos, you will have them you'll get notified and you can watch them. And I will be updating the source code on my GitHub page after every stream, as and when we move along. So let's give it some time, let it load. Okay, created for me in the other window. Let's try to make it a little bit smaller, adjust it on the screen. We'll also put our simulator over here. Yes, I don't want to be notified. So this is the plain vanilla Xamarin Forms application that you get out of the box. So you have a shared project, you have an Android project as well as an iOS project. So today we are going to be primarily focusing on the iOS project. So let it restore the packages first. By the way, I was planning to stream this online live, but unfortunately my internet connection is sucking for last couple of days. So I decided to pre-record it and then upload it to my YouTube account. Okay, so packages have been restored successfully. As a matter of practice, what I do usually, since it is a new project and I highly recommend that unless you have a very strong reason not to do so, I would recommend that you update your NuGet packages, especially your Xamarin Forms package. But of course, if you have an existing project, you should take precaution. You may be using certain functionality which if you upgrade, your application may break. So you have to take caution. You have to test your application very thoroughly. But for this scenario, we are going to stick to the latest packages. I'm going to accept by default. A new Xamarin Forms application comes up with a Xamarin Forms NuGet package and a Xamarin Essentials. Xamarin Essentials is a library which has a few useful tools such as connectivity, device info, Bluetooth, etc. We'll be making use of some of these in our further streams. So let this load up the project, update the packages. Meanwhile, I'm going to switch to my iOS simulator and let me start up my iOS simulator. I'm going to bring this over here on the screen. It is building the application. Yes, the application has been deployed and it is running. And voila, we have a blank application which is giving us a nice welcome to Xamarin Forms message. Let us go to our page which is being displayed over here. And I'm also using hot reload, which means any change that I make to this project or any changes to the XAML will be reflected on the screen. So instead of Xamarin Forms, let's call it COVID Tracker, and let's save this. And you can see it has updated it immediately. I can go, I can play with the font size, I can make it a bit bigger, save it again, and here you go. Horizontal options is center, vertical options is center and expand. Okay. So let me stop this application. One of the things you notice, it is coming up with the default Xamarin icon, and if I start, it is giving me a default blue screen with without our logo. This is something that we'll be fixing today itself. Now, before I start, I usually try to structure my project in into folders. Usually I create a folder for my views. This is where all my views, my XAML pages go into. I create a folder for view controls in case I decide to create some reusable components, content views. I can put them over here. In this project, at least to start with, we will not be doing anything, so I'll skip that out. Other thing I usually do is I create a folder for my view models. I do not want to write code behind. I do not want to perform any logic in my backend application and in the XAML pages itself. I want to decouple the pages from the actual processing. So that is what I put in the view models. I am going to create a folder for my models. This is where my data models will go, the C# classes. I also like to have a folder for resources, shared resources. So one of the shared resources we'll be using in this project is fonts. Up until a month or so ago, if you had to include fonts or you had to customize the fonts, you had to add those fonts in each of your platform specific projects, such as Android assets folder or iOS resources folder. For the iOS, you had to go to the info.plist file, you had to add the custom fonts over there, and even in your XAML pages to refer them, depending on whether you are building an Android application or the iOS application, the syntax was very much different. So with the new Xamarin Forms version, it has all been streamlined, and you can see you will see in a bit how easy it becomes to make use of fonts in this new structure. So let me add a folder for fonts. This is where our fonts are going to go into. I also usually have a subfolder called images under resources. This is where I put in some of my shared images. Instead of putting the images in each of the application head projects, I put them in the shared project. Let's add a couple of more projects, for more folders as well. I'll call them say helpers. This is where as we progress, we'll write some common helpers which we can use across the project. I'm going to add a folder for exceptions. I will come to this in a bit, why I'm going to use this. So we have got our structure. Now, one thing you will notice when the application starts, it is going to this main page. This is the main page XAML. So it is starting over here, and it is in the main root folder of our shared project. And since I mentioned we will be doing this inside our views, let me create a new item, a new file. I'm going to create a content page XAML class. I'm going to call it dashboard page .xaml. So it is created under the views class. What I am going to do over here, instead of the main page, I am going to say, let me go to my dashboard page, and let me fix the references, and I can now safely delete this main page. So right now you can see this is all empty. I'm going to put maybe a label, text equals to hello world, horizontal options is center, and vertical options is center. And let me run this project again to see everything is working fine. Meanwhile, let me clean up my head. Yeah, so you can see now it is pointing to this dashboard page XAML file, and it is giving us this message. Now, one of the additional things I would want to do, since I was saying I don't want to write any specific code in this dashboard page or the XAML page code behind itself. So rather what I would do is I would also create a view model for this. So let's create a class. Let's call it dashboard page view model. This is the naming convention I use personally, the name of the page, and add to it the view model. So we are going to create a view model for this. Okay, so let us try something first. Let me go back to this page, and here you will notice that it is using some nice fonts. Luckily in this design they have mentioned that they are using the font DM Sans. We can go to Google Fonts, fonts.google.com, and we can search for DM Sans. It's available. So this is the font which is available. So you can download this font. This is how different styles look like. This is the regular style. This is the regular italics, medium, bold. I have already downloaded this, and the fonts which are I have made them available. So I've decided to use 3 of these variants. One is the regular, medium, and bold. So I'm going to include these fonts into my project under the fonts folder which we created earlier. Let us try to add these fonts, copy the files to the directory. Yes. One important thing to notice is when you add these fonts, they will not work as such. You will have to make them as embedded resource in your project. Now once you have added this, I can go back to my app.xaml page, and somewhere outside the namespace I can add an assembly reference, export font. It takes one parameter which is the font file, and optionally it also takes a alias. We will use this alias because it makes our life much more easier to work with. So let's start with the regular first. I'm going to copy this over here. So we have DM Sans regular.ttf, and I'm going to call it regular font. So every time, rather than referencing to the font family DM Sans regular, I would simply refer it as regular font. I'm going to do the same thing for my medium and bold fonts as well. So let me bring in the medium font. Let's call it medium font. I'm going to bring in my bold font. Let's give it an alias, bold font. The advantage with this now is if I go back to my page, and if, okay, let us run this first. Let's try to change the font size bigger, equals to say 36. Let's stop and rerun because we have made changes to our code behind. Now if I want to apply this font family, all I have to do is I have to say font family is equal to, let us say, regular font. This is the alias that we gave. If I save this, you can notice the font has changed. If I change it to bold font and save this, voila. So this has become so much easier for us now. So with this out of the way, let us start defining some styles. I usually define styles in the app.xaml, but of course, if you want to use themes, you can define them in different resource classes, and you can bring them over here. In my particular case, I'm going to define them over here. Let me clean this up so that it looks a bit neat to work with. So usually the things that I define is I define some color schemes which I use. I define some, let's say, some label styles. I define content page styles if I want to use it. So we will see that in action as well. Content page styles. In fact, it's only one. I also normally in my grids everywhere I make sure that my grids are horizontally and vertically taking up all the space, which is fill and expand, and the row spacing and the column spacing is also 0. So rather than doing it in all my pages, I define a style for that as well. Let us start with that. The way you define a style is you just say style target type is equal to, in our case we are going to give it to a grid, and we don't need to give it a key, because the advantage of not giving a key is it will apply to all grids in your application. So we can define a setter property equals to, say, horizontal options is I want to use fill and expand. Let me copy the same thing and I will do it for vertical options as well. I can give it row spacing. I usually give it 0 row spacing, and the same I do for my column spacing. So let us define some colors. Color, I'm going to give it a key. Let us call it page background color. And we will be using white color for now. I want to have a color for, say, dark text color. For the dark text, let us stick to 00133D. I can have a medium text color, I can have a light text color. So let's try to define some of them. Medium text color and light text color. For the light text color, I will go with something very close to white, but not exactly white. This is what we will use whenever we have some dark background. So let us give it very close to white. For the medium text color, we will go with somewhere in the middle between the white and black. So let's say 999999. We are going to define our label styles as well over here, but before that I also usually define base label styles. This makes it easier for me to work with. We will leave it empty for now. Later on we will keep on filling. For my content page, which is XAML page, now since I want to apply some common settings across the page, across all the pages, I would define a style for my content page as well. So I'll say style target type is equal to content page, setter, let's say background color, and I want to give it a value of page background color. So all my pages are going to look exactly the same. So let's make it a bit smaller so that you can see. Here you go. Or we can separate them in different lines. Okay. So looking back at our design now, so what we want to do is we want to have this kind of design. So we have maybe a top row which has this heading, today's report and today's date. We have a section, we are going to put this section, but before that we are also going to put some news items. So let us go back to our dashboard page and let's start designing this particular page. I usually use a grid and I put everything inside the grid, but of course you can use it in different way. You can decide to go with a scroll view, you can decide to go with a stack layout, you can decide to use an absolute layout. It's all up to you. So we're going to have a grid. Let us do something. Let us run the application. So when we are running, we can see how the application looks like. As in when we make the changes will be reflected on the screen. So yeah, it's an empty page right now. You are not seeing anything. So let us give some, let's try to create some rows. I'll create 2 rows. The first row I will give it a height of 100, and the second one I would give it star so that it takes up all the space. I am going to put my page header. This is where we are going to have the title and the date. So in grid, let's create a grid for that. In grid.row equals to 0. You don't have to provide this, but I prefer to do this. This is where we are going to put a label. Text equals to today's report, and horizontal options is start, vertical options is center, and let's save and see how it looks like. So we have our title over here, but you will notice it is looking very close to the top. That is because with the advent of iPhone X, we have these safe areas, we have this notch, and we have this bottom bar. I don't know what you call it, but so that is what we have. We can, the way we can fix it, we can use something called user safe area. So you can say iOS specific project. I'll say page dot use safe area equals to true. Let's try to bring in our namespace. Let's define this XML ns iOS equals to iOS specific, platform specific. Yeah, let me save, and now you can see it has moved over here. So one of the things I would rather do, instead of doing this in all my projects, I would better put it in my app.xaml. So let's go to app.xaml. We are going to add this over here, this namespace, and the same thing that I did, I'm going to add it to my content page. So I'll say setter property equals to iOS page dot use safe area, value equals to true. The advantage with this is now I do not need to define this in each and every page. Every page is going to inherit from this style. So let me remove, let me save. Okay, let us give some margin to this, and in fact let's define a style for this first. So let us go back and over here, and we are going to style for the page header. Style, give it a name, page header style, and target type is equal to label. Setter, let's give it a font size of 18. Let's change the font family to, we will use a font family of say the bold font. We want to make it bold, and we want it to be in the dark text color. Text color, we will use static resource dark text color. Once we have defined this, I can simply go back to my page over here and I can apply the style. Static resource. Okay, we made a spelling mistake, so let's fix this. Let's also save our XAML page. Yeah, so this is what we have over here. I would give it some margin. It's touching the border, so let's give it a margin, maybe 32. Yeah, let's start with 32. 32 from the left, and then 0 from the top, 32 from right, 32 from bottom. Yeah, here you go. So horizontal options is start, vertical options is center. Yeah, this is looking good. Right now we are hard coding this title over here. I usually do not want to do that for our titles. We will, when we work with the view models, I will show you. I will usually introduce a title property in my view model, which I can set and then it can be displayed dynamically. Consider, as an example, maybe if you are navigating to maybe it's a movie application and you're going to a movie specific page, you have just passed in the movie ID to the view model and you fetch the movie details and you want to now display the movie name. So I would rather do that to the view model property and bind it over here. Now with this, let's do something similar. Let's add, let me actually copy this so that we save some time. This is where we're going to put today's date. Again, we will bind it later. Today is 30 May 2020, and this is going to be maybe at the end. And we also want to give it a margin to the right. So this is how this is looking like. This is how it looks. But we are going to make it little bit different. So instead of the regular page header style, maybe we'll define a style called small page header style, and maybe lighter in color as well. Let us go. I am going to copy this. Let's call it small page header style. Font size, we can make it 14 or 16. Make it 14. Font family, maybe it is medium font. We don't want it to be this bold. And the text color, we want it to be a medium text color. These are the colors that we have defined at the top over here. So let me come and save this. Yeah, so this is looking better now. What do we want to do after this? We want to have a section for the main content. So let's main content, and I am going to put everything in a scroll view because we would want to scroll. As you saw, we have different things. We have the news, we have the donut chart, we have the cases report, we have the countries, and so on. So I am going to put it in grid.row1. Let it take all the space, fill and expand, both horizontally as well as vertically. So this is our main content, and to start with, we will be putting news items here. Okay. So let us try to now fix some of the things which we were discussing. One thing is in the dashboard page, I mentioned that I want all my data to come from a view model. So what I would do is I would create a property called view model. Let me create a property called view model. So we created dashboard page view model, and I'm going to call it view model. Let's fix the namespace. And once the page is loaded, a namespace cannot. We have not defined anything over here. Public class model. Okay. So view model is equal to new dashboard page view model. Okay, got it. It has to be inside my class. Here you go. So we are setting the view model to the dashboard page view model, and then I will say this dot binding context is equal to this view model. Now what I can easily do, I can come over here and I can create some properties in this view model, and these are the properties which we can bind in our page. So let me show you just as a sample, then we are going to fix it. So public string, let's call it some title, get set equals to COVID-19 report. Okay. Now the moment I do this, if I go back to my XAML page, instead of hard coding this, I can simply say bind it to the some title property, and I usually go with mode is equal to one way because we are not updating anything back in our view model. Let me stop, let me run this, and you will notice this time the property or the title is going to change. It's going to come dynamically. So here you go. Let me stop. Sometimes this happens. I have to run it multiple times. A couple of times there is some issue with the iOS simulator. So it is not applying the name says iOS specific, and in my content page I set use safe area is true. Grid.row label start vertical options is center. Okay, why is this happening? Usually I think this is some okay, so for now let's make it 150 and we'll come and fix this. So here we go. So you can see this is coming dynamically from the view model. Similarly, what we can do is we can go back to our view model and we can define a property for the today's date. So we can say public string today's date. Let's create it as a date time. And we only want it to be a getter, we don't want to set anything, so let's use a shorthand. Let's say we'll return date time dot now. It's today's date. Now what we can do is I can come back here and we can fix this as well. Binding, again mode is equal to one way. Let me stop and run. Yeah, so you can see our date is coming dynamically, but we want to format it differently. So we'll say string format equals to 0, and I want to display it as 0 what is happening, yeah, maybe day and the year. Let's save this. Here you go. If I change it to 3 m's, you will notice it will reflect differently. Of course, in the month of May, it is not going to matter much, but if I change it to mm, so 05, this is the month number. So we'll stick to the full month. So when it comes to say August, it will display the full August. Okay, so let us go back to our view model. There are some of the things that we need to do. Usually there are some common properties which I want to have in my view model, which I use in all the pages or all the view models, in fact, such as this title that we are talking about. Maybe for this particular application, this today date, perhaps I want to show this date, today's date, in every page. And as and when we progress, you will notice when the information we are getting it from the internet, depending on your connectivity, maybe you do not have internet connection, in which case you may want to display an error message, or while it is fetching the data, it might take a while. So rather than showing it a blank page like this, you may want to show an activity indicator or a spinner saying something is happening. That is what we will do. So for that, usually I create some properties, but I want them to be part of every view model. So I would rather create a new class called a view model base, or a base view model, depends what you want to call it. Let's call it view model base. So we have a view model base class. I want it to implement iNotify property changed. So especially iNotify property changed. So system.component model, and let us implement this interface. Now the reason why I want this to be iNotify property change, because in our properties, as and when something changes, you will notice when we start fetching the data, once the data has been fetched from the internet, we want to store it in some local variables or public properties in our view model, so that we want to make sure that it is propagated to the base page, to the XAML page, and it can be displayed over there. So it has already created, so when I implemented this, it has already created a property for me, a property changed event handler. Let me try to take a shortcut and bring in on property changed function. So whenever it happens, it's going to invoke this. But for this to happen now, in every property, we'll have to define on property change. We'll have to call this method. I would rather create a simple method such as this set property, which internally will do this for me. So it will compare if the property has changed. It is not the same as the original property value, and it is going to raise the event. So let us define some common properties. So let's have a title. So we'll say title is equal to sync.empty. Okay, and I'm going to define a public property for this. Public string title get underscore title, and when it changes, I will say set property, and pass in the reference underscore title and the value which is being passed to this. So with this being defined, if I go back to my dashboard page view model, I can get rid of this thing. I can base it on view model base, and in my constructor I can simply say title equals to say COVID-19 report. In my XAML page I can just refer to this as title. So let us run this and you will notice how this is working. So you can see the title has changed. In fact, the same thing I can do, I can move this today's date from my specific page view model, and I can move it to the view model base. Now, other than title, there are also some other common properties which I usually use. I'm just going to copy them over and I'm going to explain to you what these properties are. So one is the title. We have the isBusy indicator. So this is what we will use whenever we are fetching the data. It is busy doing something, or when we are performing an action, I would rather show a activity indicator to notify the user that something is happening. Don't worry, the application has not crashed. Along with this indicator, I also want to display a specific text such as fetching movie details or getting weather data or saving information to the server. So this is what I use this property for. Data loaded. Once the data has been loaded, I want to show the information on the screen. Now you will say, why don't we use the isBusy indicator? You can very well do that, but the problem with this particular approach is that while it is fetching, maybe there was an error that happened during the fetch. So after that, we will have to set our isBusy to false so that the indicator disappears from the screen. The moment we do that, our data will immediately show. Maybe we do not want to show anything, and instead we want to show an error image or an error message. So I have created two separate properties for that: data loaded property and the error state property. And in case of an error message, I can display the actual error message that happened. For example, unable to connect to internet right now, or the server did not respond with this error message, and maybe I want to provide a specific error image. So this is the reason why we have created these common properties, and they are now all going to be available to us in our view models. So let us close this. We are almost done with this now, nothing more to be done here. So let us look at our dashboard view model. So we said, okay, this is looking good. We have title is equal to COVID-19 report, and what we want to do is we want to load the news. So for that, let me create a function first. Public async void load COVID data. let's make it a task. And inside this task is where we are going to fetch the information from the internet. So something like I can say this dot is busy equals to true. Now if I go back over here and just put maybe a label over here, label text is equal to binding, let's call it loading text, and we will say loading text equals to, let's call it just loading data. So if I run this now, you will notice nothing is going to happen. It is not going to be showing this text, which is the loading data. The default value of the loading text property is empty. So you can see nothing is coming up. The reason for that is we are not calling this function over here. We are not making a call. So the way to do this, there are a couple of ways. One is in your constructor itself. You can just now simply say view model dot what did we call it, load COVID data. We can do this over here, but the problem with this is it is going to block your UI. It is not a good practice to do this in your constructor. I would rather do it, I will override the on appearing page, on appearing, and I will do this over here. So let's make it synchronous as well, and now I can say await view model dot load COVID data. Now if I run this, it is showing loading data. Okay, so coming back to this, usually some of the things that I do is when we start, I usually say this dot is busy is true. This dot loading text is equal to maybe, let's call it preparing data. That is a better word, preparing data. I will say this dot data loaded equals to false, so that nothing is shown on the screen. Maybe error is error. There is no error that has happened yet. Okay, and now I can get the information. So I will say get news information to start with. We want to get the news. Now how are we going to get the news? I have I did some research on the internet and I got this. So I make use of the news API, the APIs which I provided to them with my key, and I am getting the top 20 news items. If I make a request, I'm testing this in my Postman application, so you can see it is returning me the latest information, latest news. So from CBS News, the title is can a store make me wear a mask or shop, and so on. This is the JSON which is being returned. Sorry, I cannot copy this over here, all of it. So this is the JSON which will be returned when we make this API call. So we have to translate that into a data model which we can bind to in our object. So let me copy this. There are a couple of options that we can use. One is we can use QuickType. So app.quicktype.io. You can come over here, you can paste. So when I paste, so you will notice it is going to my mistake, it should be C#. So this is the data model it is going to create for you. Now this is a bit complicated, looks very complicated. I would rather use another tool called JSON Utils. This one will give me a much cleaner representation. So if I submit, so you can see I get this information. This is what I get back. So let's go back to our project. Let's copy this first. And let us go back to our project. I'm going to create a model for my new class, and we are going to call it news classes because it has multiple classes in it. Let's call it news classes, and I'm going to paste it over here. Now what I would recommend is that you do some cleanup if required. For example, the source, we will actually be making use of the source because the name of the source where it came from BBC, from CNN, Fox, etc. This is the actual news article. Let me call it news rather than calling it an article. Source is this, author, title, description, URL to image, published at, the actual content, and then this is what is encapsulating multiple news for us. So I'm going to just call it news wrapper. We do not need status, we do not need total results. I can get rid of it. I am going to create a list of news articles. So because this is what I changed, I'm just going to make a small change to this, and this is my class. Now once we have this data model ready, we can actually make an internet API call to fetch this news and store it as a list. The way we are going to do this, we are going to make use of the HTTP client. So I can go back to my data model, and this is where we can create an instance of the HTTP client. We can, if it requires passing in any API keys, etc., we can do that. We can let it know which format it is, JSON or XML, how to convert it back. This is a very, very repetitive task. As you will see, we'll be making multiple API calls, and also I'm pretty certain in your projects you will have to do that. It's not just one API call that you need to make. You have to fetch data from different sources in different format. So I would rather create a helper which will allow me to do exactly that. So I will create a class. I'm just going to call it REST helper. I'll explain to you how this is going to be useful when we make use of it. So I'm going to create a REST helper class. I'm going to make it in fact a static class because we do not want to create an instance of it. We are just going to call a static member inside this helper and get the data automatically deserialized in the format that we want. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy paste a bit of code, and then I will explain to you what this code is doing. So I just brought in, see if I can make it, okay. Let us fix our namespaces. So what I have done, I have just created a simple get async method, which is accepting 2 or 3 things.
Okay, I found this on the...
It is taking the resource or the URL that you want to fetch data from. If you want to pass some parameters, if there is an API key that you want to pass, and so on. So the first thing it is going to do, it is going to construct a URL for you, which is resource plus, if the API key is provided, then we pass in that API key. If there are any parameters which have been passed, you can add those parameters as query string parameters. So one of the things that we need to do before we start, we need to make sure that we have internet connectivity. So this is where I'm using the Xamarin Essentials component. So let's fix the namespace. So I'm just checking if network access is equal to internet, then I want to do something. Otherwise I want to throw a internet connection exception, that is maybe internet not found. For this, the way I do it, I create a, let me copy this, I create a custom exception, internet connection exception, which is nothing but a very simple class, not doing anything at all in our case. It is just inheriting from exception, and we can pass in the message or the inner exception in case if you want to make use of this. That's all we are doing. So let me save this. I will show you when we work with this, I will show you why this is very useful. Internet connection exception, public class. Okay, we have saved this. Sometimes this happens to me. Let me save and reopen this file. Yeah, here you go. Okay, so if there is no internet connection, I want to throw an internet connection exception. Otherwise, I'm going to construct my HTTP client. I'm going to make a call to this URL that we have constructed, getting the data back in the form of a response. I'm going to ensure that we have successfully received data back. There is no error. If there is an error, if this fails, it's going to throw an exception, which we will capture, of course. And now I'm going to read it as a JSON text from this response, and then I'm going to convert this to the object type that we have provided. So this is a generic method that we have created. Now this is expecting a JSON, Newtonsoft JSON. This is the package that I use. Let me add Newtonsoft. Let me add the package. Okay, still adding, successfully added. All right, here you go. So it is going to return me the data in that particular format. We will see this in action in a while. So let us go back to our view model. So the advantage with this now is I can simply say where some news equals to REST help, await REST helper dot, let me fix the get async, and I want to get in which particular format. So in our case, I'm going to get the news, and it is going to be in the format of news wrapper. This is how the data gets returned to us, news wrapper, and I'm going to pass in the URL for the API. So this is how it works. So it's going to expect something. So this is the URL that we are going to pass. Now once this has succeeded, we will have a list of news items. So what is the URL that we are going to use for this? We are going to use this particular URL. So I can come over here and I can provide this URL, and once this is completed, let us run this, and once it is completed, you will notice that this will have our news items. And you can notice right now it was fetching the data, but it did not show any spinner. We are going to fix that. Let's have a look at this. So we have got articles, 20 articles we have received. If I go to say article number 2, it is telling me that the source is from Google News India. The article is, where is my title? Title is biggest one-day jump in COVID-19 cases, record number of patients recovered. And this is the description of this news. So this is the advantage of this. Now, obviously, what can happen is something can fail. You saw when I make a call to this, what if there was no internet connection? It is going to throw a no internet connection exception, or maybe there was some other error, maybe the server was down, anything could have happened. So we need to catch this errors. The way we should do it, we should create a try catch block. Let's start with generic catch. I will put this over here to start with. Let's get the news items, and once they have successfully completed, I will say is busy equals to false, and is data loaded equals to not is data loaded equals to true. Here you go. And we can also catch the exceptions. So if it was a internet connection exception, let's call it IEX, fix this. I can display some error message. So one of the things I will do, I will say this dot is error state equals to true. Okay, I would rather say error message. Let's do something. Let's not use this unnecessarily. Let's clean this up. To make it shorthand, error message is equal to, I can say slow or no internet connection. Okay, maybe environment.newline. I want to put it in another line. Please check your connection and try again later. Right? Simple. So this is the error message we can show on the screen. And optionally, what we can also do, you remember we had an error image, so I can say my error image is going to be maybe no internet dot png file. Of course, we do not have this in our project yet. We can add this to our project and we can make use of this. So this is the advantage of doing this, creating this connection. But other than internet, some other error can also happen, right? Some generic error which we do not know, so that will be a catch-all. Let me copy the same thing. This time for the error image, I will perhaps use maybe a common error message, and I will say something went wrong, please try again later. Maybe if the error persists, contact support team at xyz.test.com. with error message and then we can say ex.message. So we can display this on the screen. And finally, once everything is done, let's move this out. We will do this in the finally block. So once everything is done, I want to remove the is busy indicator to false and loading text to empty string. The reason I moved it out from here, otherwise I would have to do this in each of these exceptions. So let us see that in action. For that to happen, what we will need to do, we will need to create a this is inside the grid.row. Yeah, so we are going to have a section for this indicator. Let me just copy paste to save some time. Here you go. So this is usually what I do. Stack layout, it's just simply a stack layout. It is visible only when isBusy property is set. It is showing up in grid.row 1. Spacing between the items is 12 and so on. Inside I have a couple of items. One is an activity indicator, is running only when it is busy, then it is running. And what is the width and height, and this is the text that we want to display. So let us ignore this for now. We will define the styles for these. And let us remove this one. We will define these styles later. So let me run this and you will notice how does it look like. So it's deploying, it's running. You can see over here preparing data, and since it is still running, if I continue this, it disappeared. So let me actually try to simulate that a bit just to show you better. Maybe we can put a task.delay of, because it will be very quick. Let's do 5 seconds delay. And from my main page I am going to remove that, the one that I created. So you can see over here we have the, of course, a spelling mistake, and it's running for 5 seconds, and after that, once we got the data back, it disappeared because we are setting it to false at the end. Let's preparing data. Let me simulate how this thing works. So let's come over here and let's try to make a mistake. Let's change our URL to some invalid value, and let me run this now. And you will notice this time it is going to come to this exception block. See here, it has come here. So is error state has become true. Error message is something went wrong. Please contact support. Only HTTP or HTTPS schema is allowed. So this is the error message that we have received back. If I want to, simulate something different, perhaps if I just change the URL even further, this time it would throw me another error, maybe not reachable, and so on. So what is the exception? Error domain. So it is not able to find. A server with the specified host name could not be found. So this is the reason why I'm segregating these two exceptions. Okay, now one thing you have noticed, I am hard coding this over here, which is usually not a good practice. What if tomorrow, let's say in every page, if I want to make use of this URL to get the news, and tomorrow if this changes, this URL changes, I have to go to every page and I have to do that. So again, as a general practice, what I do, I create a new static class, something called app session, and I put or constants. You can decide the naming convention of that. So static class, and I put all my these common variables over here. So I can say public static string news API URL equals to, and I can go back and I can copy this over here. And replace it with app session dot news API URL. So it also looks cleaner over here and easy to maintain. So of course nothing has changed, it is the same thing. Let's remove this. Let's try to clean this up as well. So we are going to get the news. If you remember, it is getting the data back in the form of this news wrapper, which we have here. News wrapper, which has a list of article, which is nothing but a list of news. So we do not want to work with these articles. We should rather clean this up. Let's go back to our model, and we are going to create a property that we can bind to on our pages. So I'll say public list of news, let's call it COVID news, and public list of news, COVID news, get underscore COVID news, and set property reference COVID news with the value. Why is it complaining? General. Okay. So we have got this. I can say I have received this news. Now in my testing, one of the issues that I found is you will notice we are getting 20 news items, but some of the news items do not have images. There is a property over here which I can show you, which is the image to URL, which we will use to display it on the screen, the news item along with the header. But there is no some of the news do not have these images, so it makes our application look a little, I mean, bad. It will show no image and just the news headline. So I decided to only filter out the news which are which have the images. So I can say some news dot articles, of course. Let's rename it to news wrapper, since you're going to publish it on GitHub as well. So let's make it clean. So I'll say dot where. Let me bring in link extensions. I'll say news not string dot is null or empty, news dot URL to image dot to list. So what this is doing, sorry, it is filtering out all the news which do not, or sorry, which do have the images that we can display on the screen. So with this now being done, we can start displaying this on our page. Let's fix this. One of the things which we left out is the color. So let's go back and define a primary color. This is the primary color that we want to use for everything. Where is the, okay, this primary color I got it from, so they have also defined the colors. Primary color I'll use 00133D, which is again the dark, same as the dark text color. So maybe we do not need to use this one, we can use the same dark text color. Let's go back and fix this. And I'm going to apply a style to this label as well, so that it looks nice. And we have to define a regular text style. Let me just copy paste this in order to save some time. regular text style is, this is the regular text style, size 14, dark text color and regular font, not bold, not medium, just simple text. Now what we need to do, we need to display the news items over here. So this is where our news is going to appear. So let's start with the news items. Let me show you again. Let's load the video and the design that I created, which I already worked on. So let's start. So this is the carousel view, and you can see there is a scaling and opacity and different effects which are happening. This is what we plan to use. The component that I used for this is I used card view component from Andre Forms. So this is the component that I used. It allows you different options. So you can see over here you have a cards view where you can swipe, you have a carousel view, you have a 3D cube, you can also have opacity and so on, different effects you can do. So this is the component that I used. So let's go back to our project and add this component. So you will need to add this to all your projects. Card view, let's search for this. Yeah, this is the one. So we need to add this, and we need to add this to all our projects, to the shared project as well as the platform specific projects. Now one of the things you will notice it is mentioning over here is once you have added this in your iOS project, you have to add this in the finished in the app delegate. So we go back to app delegate, and we need to add it before the loading application. So we can add it over here, fix the namespace. Similarly, we have to add cards view renderer.preserve in the main activity in our Android project as well. By the way, next time we will also run this on Android and we will see how this looks like. There will be some minor changes that we'll have to do to make it work over there. Here we go. So this is fixed. We have added this, and now we can go about using this in our application. So we are going to add a, let's say cards. We are going to add cover flow view. Let's fix this. Okay, so we are going to give it a height of say 160. We are going to say its item source equals to binding. What's the property we gave here in our view model? COVID news, and mode is equal to one way. Let us run this, and then we will customize this as and when we move along. The debugger runtime is not responding. You can wait it to recover. Okay, came back. So it is preparing the data, and the data came back, but it is not showing anything because we do not have a data template for this. One thing, by the way, what we should do is, since we are going to have different items, we have news items, we have the donut chart and so on, let's put it in a stack layout. Let's put it in a stack layout, and then move everything inside. So orientation will be vertical. That is not good. I hope I have been saving my work. Let's put some spacing between the items, 24. Horizontal options is fill and expand, and is visible equals to binding data loaded, mode is one way. By the way, this is where this data loaded property that we created comes into effect. If you recall, we were saying once the is busy is done, only if the data has successfully loaded, then we want to start showing it on the screen, the data. Otherwise, we may want to show an error message. So this is where this property comes in. So this is the stack layout. I'm going to move this news inside of this stack layout. Let me fix the, okay, let's add a data template. Cards, card view dot item template. No, cards view, cards cover flow view dot item template. So we can have a template over here. We can define a data template. I am just going to put a grid, maybe grid background color equals to yellow for now, and inside this I'm going to have a label, and I'm going to display the news headline, binding. And what is our property for the news headline? Title. So let's see how this looks like now. So here you can see we have got our data is here. Why is it not showing the binding title? News. String title. This is correct. Label. Let's vertical options is fill and horizontal options is fill. Binding title. Did I make a mistake? Text color is black. I think I know where to say is view reusing enabled is false. Let's try with this one. No, it is still not doing it. label, vertical options is center, horizontal options center. Let's go back to our view model and see what is the data that we are getting. So we have got 20 items, and they have got title, public list, set property, okay, so data is coming. Let me go back to my page. Let me put a margin, maybe a margin of 16, just to see. Do we have different items? Yes, we have different items. It's not binding context, it is text. Here you go. Yes. Yeah, sometimes we do have to struggle. Okay. What I will also do is I'll add a position shift value of some pixels, maybe 110. So basically you can see they are overlapping now. I'll tell you the reason why. If you go back to this design, especially this one, so you see how they have this. So for this one to happen, we have to use the scale factor and the opacity factor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply that over here, and let me bring in this. So I'm going to apply a scale factor of 0.7 and opacity factor of 0.1. So let me save, and you can see over here something has changed. You see how this is moving? Okay, so now let's try to fix this. So instead of having this in the grid, let's try to use a pancake view. For those of you who do not know what is a pancake view, pancake view by Stephen Xamarin Forms. This is an excellent control which allows you to create basically frames with rounded corners, with gradients in them, different kind of rounding effects, borders, and so on. This is sort of becoming a de facto these days. Almost every other project has this. So we are also going to do the same. Let's add this to all our projects. Pancake view, Xamarin.forms. Yeah, this is the one. Let's add this to all the projects. Let's accept the license. So while this is adding, let us get rid of this grid and we will replace this with a pancake view with rounded corners. So same pancake, pancake view. Let's add the namespace. We are going to give it no padding, padding 0, vertical options is fill, horizontal options is fill. I'm going to give it a margin of 60 on each side, left and right, and nothing from the top, and maybe a corner radius of 6, and we are going to give it a background color of, let us say, yellow, just to see how this looks like. So this is how it will look like. We can increase the corner radius a bit more and perhaps change the color to red, maybe 12, so that the effect will be a bit more subtle. Let me make it a bit bigger if you want. So this is how it looks like. Okay, back to normal. So we do not need the color, and now inside this is where we are going to have a grid, and the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the image, news image. I'm going to say image source equals to binding, and our source was URL to image. Okay, I can say it is going to take the full space, fill, horizontal options is fill, and the aspect ratio is going to be aspect fill, so that it takes up all the space. So here you go. So we have got our news items. And this image is still loading. So you see what is happening when the images are loading. It's taking some time. So for this, I usually use a component called FF image loading. It gives you much more capabilities. If nothing else, the most advantage is that you can cache it. You can cache your images. So if in this particular application, if I rerun the application again and the same images are coming back, it will still make a call to the internet and it will download the images again. But if I decide to use the FF image loading, it will cache the images and next time it will make use of them. So let's actually add that to our project. Same thing we will do. We'll go back to NuGet packages. We will search for this, and the package that we are interested in is xamarin.ffimage-loading.forms. So let's add it to all our projects. Now this also requires you to make some changes to your app delegate and main activity. Bare minimum, what you need is, I will show you. So while this is adding, let it add. So bare minimum, it requires you to add this, which is to initialize the renderer, cached image renderer. But I like to go a little bit deeper, and what I do is I configure it with some further options, something of this sort. Let me add this, where I'm saying that I don't want to have verbose logging. I don't have any logging at all. I want to enable the fade animation so that once the image is loaded, it will fade in after 250 milliseconds. Fade image, if they are already cached, there is no need for any fade. Directly the image appear, but if it is not yet in the cache, it will load it and once it is loaded, it will smoothly transition into the view. So this is what I like to do. Something very similar we have to do to our main activity in the Android project as well. So let us do that very quickly. Let's minimize this, go to the main activity. Let's add the namespaces. So with this, let us close this, and we will make changes to our XAML directly to see what changes with this. So this is still using our image. We are going to change it to FF image and cached image. Let's add the namespace. Nothing you need to change over here, very simple. One of the things just to optimize I would want to add is down sample to view. So if you do not want to lose the quality, you may want to do this. You may want to have a loading placeholder or a loading delay. You may want to load it after some time. You may want to have a loading placeholder image, which is displayed until the image is being loaded from the internet. So let's do something. Loading placeholder equals to, in our case, we'll just have a black dot png, and I have already taken the liberty of having this image ready. So if we go, this is a simple black image, nothing. It's a very small image, which has, in fact, it's just I think 2 pixels by 2 pixels or 4 pixels by 4 pixels, just a black image. So we can simply go and add it to our projects under resources, under drawable in Android, existing files. I am going to add it from my desktop, go with project black, copy this. Same thing now I will do in my resources folder in iOS, existing file, black. But the moment you add, you have to make sure that the build properties of this is set to bundle resource, which happens by default, and similarly in your Android project it has to be an Android resource. Now if I run this project, you will notice things will look slightly different. You will have a black background image, and once the image has been loaded from the internet, okay, these are already loaded because I think this one has some error. So to do this, let me uninstall this application altogether so that the cache also disappears. Yeah, you can see it's black color. Everything is still loading because I have a slow internet connection, and then it faded in very slowly. This one is still loading. Once this is loaded, it would fade in very smoothly. Okay, now I am going to take a shortcut over here, and I'm going to add some further items and show you what they are all doing. So once I have added the image, I am going to add some bottom shadow. I'll show you why we need to have that bottom shadow. Let me change this to, I have the news headline, I have the news source, and so on. So let us start with this first. So we have a drop shadow. So let us maybe let's do something. Let's hide this component and we will keep coming to this later. And I'm going to hide this bottom shadow as well. And we have a news headline. We are just showing it at the very bottom, and I'm going to use a news headline text style for this. Let me define this news headline text style. So you see the problem over here. Since I'm displaying this in white color, because it doesn't matter whichever color I show, I do not know what my background image is going to look like. So that is the reason I have added this a bottom shadow, which would make it easier for me to look at the text. So you see there is a small shadow which has been added, and now the text is more readable. If I expand this a bit more, perhaps it would make more sense. So you see over here there's a shadow going on, so it makes it more readable. And then I'm also going to do something similar. I'm going to, let me uncomment this. So I have a pancake view which is going to display at the top the source of the news. So we have a news source text style. Let me get that news source text style. I'm going to add this. And one of the things that I'm using over here is some active cases color. I will bring in some colors, and those colors I will explain to you at a later stage once we come to the second part, the donut chart and so on. So let me add these colors here. Let me save this now and go back to my dashboard. And so here you go. So this is from Google News Australia. This is the news item. This is also from Google News India. This is from USA Today, from CBC News, and so on. So this is the news section that we have implemented. Now, obviously, in the further streams, what we will do, once you click on this particular or any news item, it should take you to a new page which would have some more details about this news, when it was published, the actual news description, if there are some other images, who is the author, and so on, just like a typical news application. So this is what we will be doing as well in future. So let me stop this over here. Where did it go there? So coming back to this is the UI that we are implementing. Of course, we did not get time for the splash screen and the logos. We can do that just now. So this is the top portion. This is what we have implemented. The remaining we will be doing over the next few streams. So before we sign off, let us quickly do something. Let's try to provide a splash image and fix this icon. The very first thing let's fix is the name. For this, on the iOS, we will do this on Android as well at a later stage, next time when we run it in the Android emulator. But for now, for iOS, you will need to go to info.plist file. And then in the bundle display name, not in the application name, in the source, under source, in the bundle display name, you may want to give it a name such as COVID tracker. So if I run this now, the name would change. Let me kill this. So here you can see the name has changed. Let's try to change the splash screen. to change the splash screen, we are going to first have some images. Again, I took the liberty of creating the logo image for this. So this is the logo image that I have created. It's a simple image with a transparent background. So I have two sizes for this, the default size and 2x the size. I'm going to add this to my resources folder, add existing items, iOS, and I'm going to add these two items, say OK. Once I have added this, I'm going to go to my app launcher. Where is my app launcher? Okay, resources, launch screen.storyboard. This is going to load take a while because it is loading this inside of Xcode. So give it a while. While this is doing, we are going to go and fix our images for the application. So if I go to my assets.xc assets on the side, you will notice I have an app icon, and this is where the icon is coming from. So we can change this. So this is 20 point times 2, which is 40 by 40. This is 20 by 3, 60 by 60. So let me change these images. I have already done this. So this is 20 by 2, right? So this is 40. This is 20 by 3, which is 60. This is, do you want to change? So let's keep it to, that's what I was saying, it's using the Xcode. This is 29 by 2, which is 58. This is 29 by 3, which is 87. Then we have 40 by 2, 80. Let's use this 80. This is 40 by 3, 120. This is 120 again. This is 180. For the iPad, I'm not bothered about changing the iPad ones. This is the 1024 image. But if you plan to deploy this application on iPad, you will also need to change this over here. So let's save this. So this is our storyboard now. So this is where we need to define the image. Where is my view properties? Where is my properties window? So on this particular image, I'm going to change this to my logo.png. I am going to go back over here. Current model is scaled to fit, that is fine. And for the background color, I am going to make it white. So now if I run this application, the icon will change and the splash screen will also be implemented. Okay, splash screen did not get implemented. I know the reason. Let's save this. So at least the icon got changed. The reason for this, I noticed in my emulator, I need to delete the application and redeploy it for some reason. I think it is something to do with the hot reload or hot restart. Yeah, here we go. So we have our splash screen and we have the news items. And since I redeployed, you notice everything went back to black and then it faded in the images. So this is what we have done today. In the next stream, maybe in a couple of days time, we will go and we will implement this second part. which is, let me run this first. Which will be this donut chart. So the total number of cases, so 50.1% active cases, 43 or 44% recovered, 6% deaths, and then we have the total cases, 5.9 million as of I think yesterday. 19,000 new cases reported yesterday. Active were almost 3 million, with 53,000 to 54,000 critical, 2.6 million almost recovered, 362,000 deaths yesterday. And at the time of running this application, since it is getting the data from using the API live data, there were only 811 deaths. And then we had these top countries. So let me rerun this. So this top part is what we have done today. And then these are the top countries. USA, of course, is the maximum, and with almost 30% of the global cases. Yeah. So US has 1.8 million cases, which is almost 30% of the globe. And we have these, the flags of the countries. This is what we will be doing over the next few streams now. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. You can also, I'll be posting the source code, whatever we have done so far, on my GitHub page. You can see that in the link below, which is github.com/naveed/xeno.covid tracker. So please stay tuned, and I suggest that you subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow me on Twitter. So whenever I'm tweeting next, I'm streaming next, you will be able to follow me. And with every stream, as and when we make changes, we add new widgets, new components, I'll be publishing the source code. What you do not see over here in this video, it is only showing you the dashboard page. What we will be implementing, of course, is the news page that I mentioned, and also on the countries, we have this view all button. Right now we are only showing the top 5 countries. When you click on view all, it is going to show you all the 200-300 countries. And maybe we'll try to implement some sort of a flip card where we will show basic information on the front of the card, and when you click on the card, it will flip backwards and show you much more information. Maybe perhaps navigate to a new page where we can show the trend, over time, how the number of cases have progressed. The news is one which we mentioned, and when we click on this, yeah, that's pretty much it. So this is what we'll be doing over the next few weeks. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned and stay safe.